Christina Codependent, thank you for making me very aware of this fifth tradition. And I feel like this might be a part of the reason why I have cycles of binge, neglect, or all or nothing, or I'll pick something up. My life will go on a course of action because I have this purpose to do this. And then I'll get sidetracked by a feeling, or something will happen, and then I'm like bounced off course. And then now I'm on a completely different course. And then it's like, then it's hard for me to come back to like my primary course or the primary purpose, and to get back into that frame of mind. And this is like, I have these cycles of like, oh my gosh, these extreme cycles, and self-sabotage in between there. And then I forget about the primary purpose. And I think this might be a key to unsolving this, the reason why this happens. And I haven't taken a look at that before like this. I'm sitting here trying to like wrap my head around like primary purpose, respect, and what is this purpose like, and stay on that purpose and just remind myself. Instead and then my ADD kicks in, and then like I just play that, I go into cat and mouse with myself, and then I don't want to do it, and fear stories come in. And so it's really interesting that there's tradition 5. And so I guess I'm like in the process of exploring it right now. Would anybody else like to share?
I'll share. Lori, Codependent, can you hear me? Yeah. I just want to say thank you, Lisa and Chris, for really demonstrating a great example of what a healthy relationship looks like, and how to work at a healthy relationship and develop a healthy relationship. So right now, I've been single for 3 years. I'm used to being in a relationship, but when I get into another relationship, I'm definitely going to do this. Whether the guy is in a 12-step or not, I'm definitely going to go through our values and have a primary purpose. So thank you for that.
So anyway, I'm not too good at getting out of them and trying to see how to do this. Yeah, I like the example of using this in a relationship where you have a primary purpose, and you can refer to that as how you're supporting us and supporting each other. Because my upbringing certainly didn't have the us. It was really authoritarian and punitive and dysfunctional. So I have, I've got some kind of deep idea that that's not even possible for me. And yet that's not true. It's just that I don't have an example of it. So this is really helpful to hear and see how other people are creating conscious relationships and using tools, and that, yes, the man actually wants to participate, not just, I don't know, whatever my mind says that would happen in a relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in a relationship with somebody who's abusing drugs or narcissistic or whatever, you certainly don't have the kind of experience they're talking about. So yeah, I'd like to heal that part of me, so that I really not only want that, but that I feel like, yeah, I can find someone like that. I can create that. Because right now I'm just work and stay alone and go to coda groups and stuff like that, but haven't even really been trying to find or create a relationship for several years now. So, but that's not what I want. It's not the way I want to live. So I appreciate this session today. It's very good.
Thanks for sharing, Marianne.
Yeah, someone else can talk if they like.
Raise your hand if you want
Anybody
to.
else would like to share?
I am so sorry, Jeremiah. I am done.
Quite all right.
So at this time, we would like to take the next 10 minutes to hear from some of our attendees on what came up for you in terms of primary purpose. Again, about 10 minutes, and then we will shift back to Chris and I finishing up our story.
Whoever would like to share, go ahead and raise your hand so I can unmute you. Right. Ari, I am going to unmute you. You can go ahead and share.
Yes, hi, I'm Ari, codependent. And
Hey, Ari.
and what was interesting, I think, for me coming on in is that I've never really worked to step 5 before. So, you know, I'm coming on in as the newbie, as it were. But I think it was interesting to hear from from other participants and really get an idea of yeah, that you know, for us, that it's definitely, for me especially, it's like, yeah, I'm ready to work that, but it just really, right now I don't know exactly what my primary purpose is within code. I kind of assume it in terms of, you know, coming in almost reactively, but I like I'm just coming on in, and it's just like, what is this step and what does it mean to me? And I don't have a clue yet, and just giving a space to say, hey, I have more work to do in that area. So, but that's a long way of saying, I don't know just right now what my primary purpose is in terms of step 5, and that's okay. I'll get there. So thank you.
Thanks, Ari. And then I'm going to have Susan. You can unmute yourself.
Hey, hi, I'm Susan, and thank you for the
Hi,
workshop.
Susan.
Thank you for the presentation. I hadn't thought about the idea of a primary purpose in my personal relationship, so that's quite a revelation. I only recently got these booklets. I got this booklet that they were talking about, the 12-piece relationship toolkit, and Coda also has another one called Traditionally Speaking, Finding Solutions. It's also about traditions, full of a lot of examples and shares on how to use the traditions, both in the Coda group and in personal relationships. That's really important. I think when I think of my primary purpose now, after being in this workshop, it just flashed in my mind about tradition 3, about what's my main reason for being here. Tradition 3, the only requirement for membership in CODA is a desire for healthy and loving relationships. I think that's going to help me to start to define for me what my primary purpose in my personal relationship is. What will healthy and loving look like? That's something for me to think about. And in hearing the speakers today mention some of theirs, that word of respect popped out for me, because that's something my husband has mentioned before. And I did share in my group how in conversations, especially by being CODA now, I'm realizing that there's a difference for me in hearing and listening. Because in hearing my husband, he'd be talking about wanting to feel respected. But I would be building the case in my mind about how I would rebut him and either prove to him that I was being respectful, or prove to him why I wasn't going to be respectful in this case, because, you know, all these kinds of rebuttals and arguments, and I wasn't really listening. I mean, I was hearing, but I wasn't really listening. So I'm thinking when he wants respect, I think a lot of it is he wants acknowledgement. He wants someone to listen. And when I think about that, well, so do I. So it's like being a program that's helping me to step back and look at what I'm doing. And if I want healthy and loving relationships, and now do I want to figure out a primary purpose, something we can both work together as the two overlapping circles and not be in our separate circles that just clash sometimes, or to be totally enmeshed and there's nothing left in my circle. I've got to figure that out. And that's why I'm here in CODA. And I'm really grateful for these meetings and these workshops. Could someone please put it in the chat if they know about other meetings that actually focus on these bits of literature? I was looking into trying to find some so I can work in a group setting on these traditions. And I'd really appreciate that information if anybody has it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Susan. And Julie B. I don't see my option to unmute you. That's weird. Oh, merge you with audio. Huh. Julie, for whatever reason, I don't see how I can unmute you. And I'm not sure how to figure that out. If anybody else would like to share, feel free to raise your hand so I can unmute you. All right. Is it Royson? I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Okay, hi. You can hear me, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the workshop. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, if I could think of the few things that I picked up from other people that were actually sharing in my breakout group just now, that I have a choice. I'm dealing with a major situation that I think it seems quite unfair. People seem to be making a lot of decisions and not including me. There seems to be something going on and I haven't been let in on it at all. So I think that's going against, you know, a lot that I would have expected. But so I have a choice how to react. I actually have, you know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the things just now. I don't want to go into victimhood. I think it's an unfair situation in my opinion because I'm not being asked about anything or told about anything. I feel like there's a whole situation going on. I won't even bother getting into details right now, but so okay, so I don't want to be a victim. I can put down boundaries. I can what else? Yeah, I just have to handle it very carefully because it seems like a very unhealthy situation and unfair, and I'm willing to learn the lesson and take whatever lesson is in this without, you know, affecting myself negatively in CODA. And, you know, with my codependency and without causing any more drama. There's just a whole thing going on. People are withholding information from me, and it seems very unhealthy in as far as I can see. So I don't really, you know, I don't agree with it basically, but I have to be very careful not to react. So really try and work my program and get to a solution for the common good, whether it's right or wrong. try and learn from this. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, so, you know, okay, thank you. Leave it that for now.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
And Julia, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. I'm Julia, codependent.
Julia.
Hi. So I got something really incredible, I feel. I'm getting a lot of incredible things out of this workshop. I got something incredible out of the Breakout group. And what came to me is that, first of all, I'm loving the spiritual consciousness you all are bringing to the workshop. And I shared that a sponsor I had says that just like my new and renewed relationships are all with equal partners, my old relationships were also with equal partners. That is at my level of emotional health and maturity. So in the same spirit, I'm realizing that there's always a primary purpose, whether or not I'm aware of it. So getting aware of primary purpose in each situation and relationship and consciously deciding whether it matches my principles can take me further toward finding primary purpose, because it's definitely not, I think about intentions, I think about common welfare, but I don't always think about like primary purpose in every situation, and just hoping as my brain heals that I can hang on to this wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Julia.
I'd like to share. I don't have a hand.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead
I'm
and
one of
share.
the hosts, so since there's no one in line, I want to share. Christina, codependent. This has been a great awareness for me, and I'm always praying about like, okay, what's my purpose, or what's the purpose to that, and I'm wanting to know like what the purpose is. When I get to go inside of myself and create that, and I didn't realize that I have that empowerment or power within me to create, you know, a primary purpose for circumstances in my life, and you know, really hold to those values. And this is a really big eye-opener for me. And I didn't get into a breakout group, but I was saying, like, I just don't really understand, like, I'll have this thought or plan that I'm going to execute this plan, and it's going to, you know, have this type of purpose and this outcome, and then all of a sudden I'll get caught up in a feeling, and that feeling takes me off track over here. Now I'm in this feeling over here, feeling a whole nother way, and then I drop what's going on over here, which was a purpose to do something over here, but now I'm over here. It's almost like I'm like two different people. Like there's like this duality of my spirit going on, like this teenager, or my inner child, or parent, teenager, and it's like there's almost like two things happening can happen simultaneously. And so I feel like a part of my recovery program or self-parenting is going to come from like really focusing on nailing down that, you know, what the aspects are of that, and following that with all parts of my spirit, you know, like my little girl, my teenager, my parent, my higher self, so we can all be congruent. So anyways, I just wanted to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina.
How are we on time? Have we done 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Say again?
I don't.
Yes, we
I thought
have.
somebody-
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. Okay, so you're going to take us to the next?
Yep.
Why is it not going?
Once you click on it, then you can go.
Okay.
So we're going to go back to about 9 o'clock where we started our story. This is the time where we went back to a group conscience and we reopened the discussion earlier at 6 o'clock, we had decided to go forward. And we had been moving forward for about 3 hours where we hadn't seen anybody, where we were out, just about out of water. And now it's 3 hours later, we're that much more tired. And we had another discussion. And the group consensus at that time was to turn back. You know, that was one of the things that helped us to take control, because when we were moving forward, we were going into the unknown. New things were coming up. We were seeing new trails, and we were not seeing markers. And that was part of the conversation, was that if we go back, we know it's going to be at least 3 hours to get back to Fremont Saddle. We know that we've got another hour and a half minimum to go down afterwards. But at that time, it was our choice to backtrack instead of going further. You know, we had reasons that we wanted to go forward, and then we changed our mind. One of the things that actually I threw out there was the Eagle Scout in me knows that if we walk that way between those two peaks, we're going to find a road. It's like I seriously considered going off the trail. And during our conversation and Lisa's, feedback, I pulled that back. I withdrew that suggestion. So after that group consensus and we started going backwards, we started to have some spiritual wins. So for myself, getting over that over-responsible Eagle Scout, I'm a judge. I self-judge quite harshly. And when I start to judge, I don't know if any of you have ever seen a hat like that, but my judge hat has got ear flaps, and it comes down and it closes my ears and it gets all knotted up underneath, and then I'm talking and I'm not listening, which is really, really difficult to have a conversation. So I was able to remember that I'm not allowed to judge. Part of my recovery is not judging others. And even before that, I have to not judge myself. I don't have the right to judge my younger self. And on this day, that meant my younger self from 6 hours earlier. I can't judge the little boy Chris. I can't judge the teenager Chris. Well, I needed to remember, and these tools helped me remember, that I couldn't judge Chris from 6 hours earlier. And I won that battle. I needed my higher power. I needed these traditions, and I was able to overcome that hurdle and stay in the moment, stay focused. And when it comes to the choice of whether or not I had to leave Lisa, you know what? That wasn't in my hula hoop. The serenity prayer helps me to define my hula hoop. The serenity to accept things, to the serenity I needed was to be in the moment, inside my hula hoop. And the choice of whether or not to leave Lisa was outside my hula hoop. Okay, first off, the choice wasn't there. The circumstances, whether or not I had to make the choice, that was in the future. So that's not inside my hula hoop. The courage to change the thing that I can. For me, that courage was not obsessing about that fear, was to say, is it possible? Yes, but it's not here, so let it go. And the wisdom to know the difference, I had to keep pushing it outside my hula hoop. It wanted to keep coming inside. It wanted to distract me from the moment, and I knew I couldn't be in the future about a fear that may or may not happen. I had to stay focused in the moment.
So my spiritual wins came with the idea to keep moving, which we've alluded to earlier. So to relate those to my two burdens that I was battling, my spiritual battle, you know, the idea that I had to keep moving, well, there were some times when my body gave out and I would literally collapse. I would just collapse and say, babe, I can't go another step. And those were usually the times when I was turning to him, apologizing. Well, at some point, he admitted to me that he was only 1 or 2 steps away from telling me, hey, I need to stop. And he was able to express that he didn't think less of me, or there were absolutely no complaints, no finger pointing, hey, Lisa, you're slowing us down. And so it helped me relieve myself of that critical message that said I was hurting us, that I was not only hurting myself by having to stop and I couldn't keep moving, but I was hurting us. And when I was able to accept that, those breaks helped me to keep moving, because I'm not a machine and I'm not really young anymore, and my body needed to rest for a moment. And sometimes it was only, you know, a couple minutes, sometimes it might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but you know, those little rests were really important, and they actually allowed me to keep moving. The other win that I experienced from that spiritual battle was around the fear of dying. So at some point while I was walking around with the negative thoughts going off in my head that I shared with you all earlier, I remembered, hey, I have a higher power. Hey, that higher power is really big. Why am I not relying on my higher power in this moment? And so I stopped and I really thought about that. And then a story came back to me. And just to let you know that part of my personal history is sexual abuse and sexual assault. And part of my recovery included doing some recovery work as well as therapy work around that. And there was a book that I read that was very popular at the time. And there were some personal stories in there about, I think this book mostly focused on women overcoming these situations. And there was one story that came back to me. And it was a woman who was in a sexual assault situation. There were multiple attackers. She was naked and not doing well. And at one moment, she thought about her dogs. And she says, who's going to feed my dogs? And in that moment, she found power. And this power rose up within her, and she fought these people off and got away. Now, I hadn't read that story for 30 years. I can't even remember what I had for dinner last night. But that story came back to me, and I know darn well that that was my higher power working in my life. And what it told me, the message communicated to me, was that I needed to find the will to live. Because I don't know how y'all work with your higher power, but my higher power does not come down in bodily form and say, hey, Lisa, go that way. It doesn't work that way. I had to willfully choose to live and to want to live. The biggest fear I had was never seeing my grandchildren again. I have 3 of them. And so that was my will to live, was my grandchildren. And every step I took became one of their names: Connor, Aubrey, Darius. Connor, Aubrey, Darius. And it became almost a mantra. And I kid you not, every single step I took from that moment to the top: Connor, Aubrey, Darius. I found my will to live. I found my connection to my higher power. I told those critical voices, those negative energy voices, to shut the bleep up, that they didn't get to win today, because not today. It was not today. Today was not going to be that day. And I found my will to live. And that had to be a choice on my part. I got to choose. And for me, this was a massive win for where I was at in this moment, because I really believed that we weren't going to make it out. And things turned around for us at that point. Go ahead, to you.
You know, once we turned around and we started coming back up, you know, these are trails now that we've been on once, and a lot of them in the dark. And some of the victory was that when we veered off a little bit, we were focused, we were right there. You know, we may have taken 10 or 15 steps, and one or the other of us were like, no, this isn't right. And we stepped back and we got back to what was familiar. You know, the staying focused kept us on track during our return. It was 3 hours going forward in the wrong direction, and it was 3 hours coming back. We did not, even though we were going uphill, we didn't stray. It was the same amount of time. And for where we were, that's a victory.
For sure.
There was another choice that we made on the way back. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we had no cell service. Y'all know this. And I had this brilliant idea to turn my cell phone on and up loud, because I thought maybe. And for about the next hour, 2 hours, I think it was the next 2 hours, I would pull out the phone and I'd look and I'd check and I'd try to dial 911 and it didn't go anywhere, and he'd say anything and I'd say no. And it almost felt like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But something in me just, I was like a dog with a bone. I couldn't give it up. And I just kept trying and I kept trying. No results. But I still left the phone up. And eventually I gave up the calling part and just threw it in my pocket and just said, okay, we just got to keep going and focus there.
The other thing we had to do was what to do with the last little bit of water. We had been nursing the last little bit for probably about an hour and a half or so. And we made that choice on the climb back up. I suggested to Lisa, let's use it. And I knew that it was a little bit of an anchor for hope, that we had a little more water, but I had heard too many stories of hikers who had died from dehydration, and they had water in their canteen. And I didn't want to be one of those. I suggested our bodies need it, and let's trust higher power. Let's use what we have now as much as we have.
And this was very upsetting to me. I balked at first. I didn't want to do it because for me, it was the only thing left. You know, it was the only hope that I had left, that maybe we would be okay. And he gave me the you know, our bodies need it. It's time. I think that's what he said more than anything else that got me, was that it was time. And I got over myself and I said, okay. And we sucked down the very last of the water. And I knew that in my mind, time was out. We were out. The clock was running now. Like, we didn't have any other options. There was nothing. Sometimes we would smell water. We might have even felt like we heard it or felt it in the air, but we never found it.
No, we never.
We never found that hidden water.
I even pulled out my Swiss Army knife and tried cutting into a cactus to see if I could squeeze something.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
No, so we're here.
Yep. Now, Lisa had said that the water was her last little bit. In my head, and we shared this later, in my head, getting back to Fremont Saddle was it. Getting back up to the vantage point was, in my head, the place where we would be okay.
Mhm.
And we were really getting back to trails that we were familiar with because they were the first trails where there was still sunlight. So we knew we were getting close to the saddle. And at one point, Lisa asked me, what do we do when? And this was one time where staying focused, it happened. I was right there in the moment, and I didn't want to get into the future, but keying off of our primary purpose, I didn't want to force what I was thinking. I said, it's a good question, Lisa, but let's talk about it when we're there. Let's stay focused on the steps in front of us. And we did. We got to the top. In my head, I felt the worst of it was over. If nothing else, I would walk over to that tree around that bend and wake up the couple that was there. As it turned out, when we got up to the top, there was another overnight stay. There was a tent right there. But the first thing we had to do was catch our breath.
Mm-hmm.
And when we opened up the backpack at that point, one of the little miracles from 8 hours earlier came out for us.
Yeah, so I was the one who thought about bringing stuff to eat because I get hungry when I'm out and hiking. And I had packed some partially dried apricots, the kind that are not full of nitrites and nitrates and stuff like that. And I pulled those out and went, hey, let's chew on one of these for a minute. So we both took one and took a little bite, and
it was so much easier. I mean, the apricots, because they were only partially dried, they didn't take much water to actually chew on. And there were some natural sugars. You know, Lisa told me earlier that, or told me later, she had jerky in the backpack. And then at the last minute, she pulled the jerky out and put the apricots in. You know, if we had the jerky, it would not have gone down as easily. But the partially dried apricots, we were able to nibble on and get just a little bit of energy even without the water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the other miracles was the temperature didn't drop. I mean, here it is Good Friday. So this is still fairly early spring. And it was warm during the day, but I've always heard stories in the desert where the temperature drops like a rock when the sun goes down, which didn't happen. We were working hard and our bodies were sweating, but if the temperature had dropped, hypothermia could have set in so easily, so easily.
So at this point, we came to the point where we needed to decide what to do. We were at the top now. It was time to decide, what are we going to do? And we had options. As we mentioned, we could go and try to find that other couple. We could go back down the way we came up. So we would go back down that treacherous part. We could sit and wait for daylight, see if we could make our way down, or we could go and bother the couple or we didn't even know actually who was in there. We just knew there was a tent.
Yep.
We came to that point where we had to make a decision. And we did make the decision to go back down. I didn't believe that I could wait another 5 hours. And then it was going to get hot again when the sun's coming up. That wasn't going to work. So we made the decision to head back down. And so at that point, you want to?
Well, and on my side, I was kind of leaning towards waking someone up and saying, please, just a sip of water. Whether we say it or not, just waking someone up to get some water. You know, Lisa's medications were in the car, and I was super sensitive about the risk that she was in. I didn't know if she had the energy to go down, but when she told me that she was, that's the way we went. And about 10 minutes, it was still a pretty easy trail at that point. And all of a sudden, we both jumped out of our skin because Lisa's phone lit up.
My phone pinged, and one of my sponsees had sent a message to me probably hours ago, but it came through right then. And I don't know if you all have this situation, but I've lived in homes where if you don't stand in just the right place, the phone doesn't work. And so when we got that ping, we literally stopped dead in our tracks and dropped. We just sat right down because one step either way and it could go. And I look and I have phone service. And I look at him and he looks at me and he says 911. And I said, okay, so I called 911. Now, here's where more miraculous things happened for us. So I called 911 and it didn't connect with the county we were in. It connected with the county next to us. And they insisted that my GPS coordinates were in some other county, some other area. And I said, honey, I'm looking at the trailhead right there. It says this. And I explained to them. And I lost the call and came back and I had to call 4 different times until I finally got one person and found out that my cell phone carrier, T-Mobile, is sometimes called T-Maybe. And they don't always connect well and know what the GPS coordinates are. And so this lady gave me her number. I was able to call her back. It still didn't work. And then I had an intuitive thought. I call it God, higher power. And I said, if I've got cell phone service, I should be able to get on the internet. Chris checked his phone couldn't, but my phone could. So I said, there's got to be a website that can tell me my GPS coordinates. So I do a quick search. I get a GPS site, and you are now looking at the screenshot that came up for me when I went to the website and I was able to give them those coordinates, and they went, hey, you're at Peralta Trailhead near Fremont Saddle. And I'm like, yeah, I am. And it was very validating and affirming as a recovering codependent, because I have many times doubted my reality and wondered, well, maybe I'm not, but you know, it's like that. So that workaround was a really important part of the miracles that we saw happening. I'll say one more thing and then pass it to you. So at that point, they told us that they couldn't come get us right away because they had to confirm our story. Because it turns out that there are people who BS their way through this kind of stuff, and they make these kinds of phone calls and say they're lost, and then I guess they have to come out, and they come out and then they find out nobody's there or somebody lied or whatever. We were shocked. So they actually had to go to the trailhead, see that my car was there, see that we had signed in at the trailhead, and then they call back and go, well, yeah, you're telling the truth. That took 2 hours. 2 hours.
Well, I don't think that it was 2 hours for the validation, but it did take some time to validate it. And then it also took time to prepare the search and rescue. They, they have a lot of search and rescue. There's a lot of, national forest in and around Phoenix. And the helicopter had to be prepared. The EMTs had to be there. It takes X amount of time. And at that point, we do have the sheriff's phone number. And while we were sitting for those 2 hours, and now we're not working anymore, and the temperature is starting to go. We're huddling together to stay warm and all that good stuff. But here we hear the thump, thump, thump at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're good codependents. We're concerned that we're waking up the other hikers that are up trying to sleep at the top of the saddle. And we got over ourselves. We realized that while we were on the phone, they were actually throwing out different possibilities. At one point they were going to send the ranger up with water, and then he was going to guide us down. Then the helicopter was going to be sent, but they were wondering if we would go back up to the saddle, and because that's where the flatland was, that it could land. And we were honest. I mean, they asked me about my weight, and I didn't give them the weight on my driver's license. I gave them on my real weight. And we were honest with them, is that maybe we can get back to the top. It was only 10, 15 minutes, but we're tired. And Lisa's off her meds. And it took us this much time to get cell service. And they respected our truth. The helicopter came in. We're kind of on the side of a hill, and one rail comes in and lands on a rock about 10 foot away from us, and the EMT steps off, and the helicopter goes off and does a fly around. They were considering bringing Lisa down first and then coming back to get me, but they chose to let us stay together. The helicopter came around, once again, dropped one rail onto a rock, held itself steady for Lisa to step up and get into one seat, and then I stepped up and got to the far seat, and they brought us down to the trailhead. Just thinking about the hours and the training and the skill set for a helicopter rescue of that sort is mind-boggling. These are people who are doing service to protect the community, and it was given to us at no charge. Yep, we drained some water pretty quickly before we got down to the bottom. And, you know, the sheriffs actually, once we got down to the bottom, one deputy took Lisa and the other deputy took me, which we were okay because we knew that the risk was done. We knew that we had survived. And they wanted to talk to us individually. It's like, you do what you got to do. It's all good because we know that we're safe.
Yeah. How about that moonlight helicopter ride?
Yeah, we got back to the car. We pulled off my boots, and I said, you know, Lisa, I'm really apologetic that our first moonlight helicopter ride was nowhere near as romantic as I envisioned.
I was wearing my Fitbit, and this was the number of steps we took that night. It's a reminder. It's a reminder.
14 miles is, I've been on some long hikes, and obviously these were under conditions that neither of us had ever been through before. And as a testimony to the difficulty of the trail.
Well, this was us before we went down the other side.
Yeah, when we first got to Fremont Saddle, this was one of the pictures that we took. And then when we recovered our pictures afterwards and we looked at it, we realized that we didn't know how much of this we were going to be doing to get through the night.
And not just physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
We were hanging on to each other with dear life.
And the boots.
These boots, those were the hardest 14 miles they'd ever seen. Those boots were immaculate at the start of our adventure that night. And stumbling our way through the dark and over those trails, those were the scars on the boots that helped us get through. I mean, we were both prepared with our hiking boots, and we needed every bit of protection that they gave us.
And with that, we say thank you to all of you for being with us. It took a little longer to share our story than we had anticipated, but we would like to open it up for questions if anybody has any. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and thank you so much. We love you.
Oh my goodness, you guys, that was a captivating story. Oh my gosh, I was getting nervous. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Can I give a shout out? Chris's mom is with us, and I just want to say we love you. God bless you. Thank you for being here with us. That's
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Where is she?
Okay.
What's her name? Oh, we don't have to say that.
Can we not? Let's just leave it. I just wanted to do that because it was a big deal that she joined us. I'm going to mute and turn it over to you guys. Thank you.
Yes. But I'm glad that Chris's mom was with us. I mean, they have an amazing story, and I was captivated. It was just great. I mean, just amazing. Perfect for today. You guys are amazing. I'm so glad you made it out of there. I have so many questions. But
Can I add one more thing? I just want to add one more thing. We found out that somebody died there a week later after we had been up there. So it's real that it's not a safe place for people that aren't super experienced. Okay, I'm done. Thanks.
Wow, that's just amazing. I meant to put like recovery on it. I mean, that's even right. And so, okay, so raise your hand if you would like to give them some gratitude. I would love for you guys to experience some love and gratitude from our community, and also questions if you have. But you know, it's important for you guys to receive some love because you've given so much of yourselves to us. And so, Jeremiah, did you want to raise them and whatnot?
I sure do. Here we have Linda G. I'm going to ask you can unmute yourself now.
Thank you. I am Linda Kudipandit. Thank you so much for the workshop, and wow, it was an amazing experience. I guess traumatic, but also really interesting, and it made me reflect on a lot of things that I have to work on. I wanted to ask how long you was together as a couple before starting to do the relationship pamphlet questions. And also, I think I heard in the beginning of you sharing the experience that you got together and you moved, and Lisa moved to another part of the country to be with Chris. How long was you in the relationship before doing this move? And I'm gonna leave it there. And I'm really grateful for this. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Would you like to answer some portion of that?
Sure. It was about 2 months after our relationship started that we made that suggestion. I asked her if she would be willing to do that workbook or the pamphlet. It was relatively new at the time, but I was really interested in it. So I made the suggestion to Lisa, and she heartily agreed. The Good Friday adventure that we had was about, what, 5 months? About 5 months? 6 months. It was 6 months after our relationship that we went to Arizona to meet my brother.
And shortly after this situation that happened for us, it was a turning point for me in the relationship. And I recognized that if we could get through that, it was like a testing ground. And I thought, if we can get through that as a couple, we can probably make a go at doing this more face-to-face long-term. So it was shortly after that that we began talking about being in the same place. And yeah, it was a natural progression for me to come out this way.
All right. And then Carol, I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you.
Are you there, Carol?
Hi, greetings from Ottawa, Canada. Thank you both for your story. So delightful to hear, and always great to hear the great ending. I believe in the title of this workshop, you mentioned 4 key traditions, and I was jotting notes along the way, and I made note of traditions 1, 2, and 5. Was there a 4th one that I missed you mentioning that you felt helped you through this? Through this test of your relationship experience?
No, I thought we did 4, but maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe I missed one.
1, 2, 5. No,
You're right.
Oh,
right.
right.
It was supposed to be 3, not 4.
No problem, no problem. I just thought maybe I missed one. Thank you so
Thank you
much
for
for
asking,
sharing your
Carol.
story.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye now.
Thanks, Carol. And Jackie.
Oh, I'm unmuted. Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm codependent. Thank you so much. What a powerful story. Chris, you shared a couple times about self-judgment. I'd love to hear what tools you use to pull yourself out of that.
One of the, so one of my triggers from very early on is being told what I am thinking and somebody telling me what my intentions are. And I got really, really aggravated. It's like, who do you think you are to judge me? You don't know my story. And it was during my 4th and 5th step that I realized that while it aggravated the snot out of me, I was doing it to everyone else also around me. And at that point, I realized the golden rule really kicks in here. If I don't want other people to judge me, then I better stop judging them. And then the golden rule is my second point. I don't get to judge my younger self any more than anybody else gets to judge my younger self. So for me, it was an evolution. It's a little bit of a stepping stone to practice these principles with myself as well as others.
All right. You're going to unmute Marilyn, or Marilyn, you can unmute yourself now.
Hi, Marilyn Codependent. Hi, Lisa. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Marilyn.
I have no picture because I've been bawling my eyes out. You guys make me cry. I didn't barf in my shoes this time. You guys are really sweet and cute together, and sometimes I just, but I love your story. It was wonderful to hear you putting the principles to practice because, Lisa and I, we've been working together for a really long time, and it's all well and good to hear about it and talk about it, but to see it in action, y'all give me so much hope, and I really, really appreciated everything that you said today, and you know how much I love you, and I'll just keep texting you so that your phone will ding every chance we get. All right, that's enough out of me.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you,
We
Marilyn.
love you.
Love you. That was Marilyn's text was the one that came through.
Oh, wow.
that night. Yeah. Yeah, it was her.
And now we have Julie B. You can unmute yourself now, Julie.
On.
Julie,
Are you there?
she's unmuted. Julie B, you're on.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and mute her, but I'll leave her hand up, and then we'll go to Alan. All right, Alan.
Yeah, hi, I'm Alan and welcome from Australia. Yeah, Lisa and Chris, I really enjoyed your story. Over here is pretty dangerous as well. I tell you, when you're in the desert, Nullarbor Desert, never leave the car. It's the only safe place, and every year people die. And because of what you're saying, no water, no shelter, and the helicopters can't find them, the plane, yeah. So your situation, I can really, really appreciate under the circumstances. And I love how you put the traditions into the way you live together. It's the way you experience the whole experience. I really, really enjoyed it. You know, I just recently went to South America. I did the most dangerous road in the world by push bike. We went to Machu Picchu and climbed Wanu Picchu, which is 700 foot straight up, and I'm 64 years of age. I loved it. But my difficult part of the whole trip was the person I went with. He was my best mate, has been for 11 years, but he was the only one I could speak Spanish because we went to Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and Chile. But I found I was continually being manipulated by him. And there was no communication. There was no communication between us, you know, and it was really, really, I got really angry all the time. And the hardest one, we went from the Bolivia to Chile, and we had to go through borders. And I said to the guy, we need to go in there. And he said, no, don't worry about it. So when we got to Lake Titicaca, we found that we didn't have a visa. So we had to go all the way. And then we got in an argument. Didn't go well, guys. And I could see why people die. And, you know, because of your communication and because you're cooperating with each other, that's why you didn't die. That's why you didn't die. And I appreciate what your experiences, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. And then we have, I think it's the Otto and Deborah. I'm going to unmute you. You can go ahead and share.
My name is Deborah, and I'm codependent.
I'm Otto, and
We are so grateful. I have such a deep sense of gratitude that I took this time with you and to listen to your story. Marilyn told me about this on Thursday, and so I was a little late because we were in a business meeting, but I'm really grateful that we got to be with you, because I remember when you got back from that trek, and I'm in Nevada, we're in Nevada also, and I remember it like cellularly with all the beautiful spiritual truths that came from that experience, you know. And so to get to be with both of you today is such a blessing to me, and things that I can apply more within my relationship, and you know, because I just want to continue to grow every day, you know, to stay conscious, live present in present moment, and be mindful for myself and toward myself and with my relationship and others, you know, in my life. And today, I guess my question would be for you, because there's so much, there's such a plethora of experience that you had within those hours. If you could pick one, like just one moment for each of you, like an epiphany, you know, that you experienced, and share that, because there's so much richness here.
Minister?
No.
Okay.
I need a minute to think that through. We'll let him start.
For myself, there was one moment that I saw Lisa and her shoulders slumped, and I just stepped over to her. I touched her on one shoulder, and I pulled her into my arms, and I started the Serenity Prayer.
Yes.
And for me, that was the moment that it's like, God, I'm here, I've got her, and I need you.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was trusting my higher power, because I knew the risk I was in. But trusting my higher power, that was a biggie for me.
So my epiphany came, one of them, of course there were many. We were back at the hotel, and he looked at me and said, my trust and faith in God grew as a result of this. And I looked at him and I said, then it was all worth it. That's it.
Thanks, guys.
Jeremiah, I was able to unmute Julie, so can you try to unmute her now? I think she switched over.
Okay, Julie, you can unmute yourself.
She muted herself.
Oh. All right, you are unmuted.
Toggle. It's gonna toggle. There she goes. Nobody do anything. She did it again.
Maybe your volume is down.
No, she's muting herself.
Nope, she muted herself.
Okay, well,
okay, Julie.
All right, try that again.
Yep.
I think I heard her.
Hello.
Julie.
Oh!
Hi, Julie.
Yay!
Did it. This
Hallelujah.
contest prevails.
Oh, thank you, higher power. Oh my gosh. Lisa B. and Chris. First, my love, I served on the CODA Board of Trustees with Lisa. I want to say thank you for practicing the traditions with me, Lisa, during all those challenging times. And this is a miracle program. And to see you and your beloved together, it just touches my heart. I love you, so I miss you so much. I moved back to Vegas and she's in Chicago. Listen, this workshop has touched my heart and just gives me so much hope. You both are resembling what Tradition 3 looks like, and I'm just so proud and grateful to be part of your CODA family. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Christina and Jeremiah. Love you all.
Thank you, Julie. Love you so much. We out of hands. Don't know if there's any more hands.
That was awesome. I'm glad we just kept going at it. We finally got her on. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else want to share?
I don't know if there's any more hands. Oh, got one more hand there. Is she wanting to share?
All right, so it looks like Ellen J wants to raise her hand.
There she goes.
There she goes.
Julie W.
Oh, we got Ellen.
Oh,
Why can't we hear her? Ellen, we can't hear you.
Turn your volume up.
She might not be connected to the computer audio. Uh-oh, she just muted herself.
Hi,
Good.
I'm Julie, codependent. I just wanted to say, whilst we're waiting for Ellen to get connected in some way, just that I'm listening in at the UK and we've just gone past midnight now, but I'll tell you, it's been so worth it. I've really enjoyed listening to your story. You two are an inspiration. Yeah, I'm right at the start of my coder journey. I'm just like a month in. But yeah, you just really are. Yeah, you set the bar real high. But I think you give us something to go for. And honestly, no, I think that's, they say look at people that have what you want, and you've just been a model of that tonight. So I just want to say thank you. I haven't any questions. I've just really enjoyed it. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can someone help Ellen J get unmuted? Ellen, it's Ellen Janik.
Yep. There we go.
Yay!
I'm in.
All right.
I am Chris's mom. I was the first person to hear this story. And from the minute I asked how their evening had been, because I knew that they were going out for the sunset and then the moonrise. And Chris said, if you're driving, stop the car. So I did, and I called them back. And when I asked how it had gone, Chris said, well, let's just say our first helicopter ride together wasn't exactly the way I was expecting it to be. And I took a deep breath because that sounded really bad. And I said, that sounds like a hospital. And they said, no, but. And then I heard the story. And Marilyn, I started crying from the get-go because I knew I was listening to an Easter miracle. And that's what that story has always been for me. And I can't thank you enough for sharing it in the big picture, because it's a story that has a lot to say to a lot of different people. And I will never tire of hearing about your miracle. Thanks for sharing it.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you for coming on, Ellen. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
We have Linda H. You're unmuted.
Hi, thank you for your story, Lisa and Chris. I keep on thinking of who's going to play you guys in the movie. So, a couple questions. Did you see any wildlife, threatening wildlife? Were you concerned about that? And second question is, why not scream out for help and wake up people or get your attention that way? Was that on your radar at all? And would that have helped things move along quicker?
Well, there was a question about the wildlife, but no, we didn't see any. As far as tracks, there really wasn't that much out there.
And to be really honest about the desert, most of the things that are in the desert are pissed off, poisonous, or both, and they don't come out at night. So yeah. It's really not it really wasn't an issue. However, the other piece.
And we kind of that we were deliberately noisy because in my experience wildlife stays away from humans, so we deliberately spoke in conversational tones to make sure that any wildlife that was around had plenty of warning to get out of the way. And we did consider it as far as calling out for people. When we were moving forward, we hadn't seen anybody. Reaching out to someone was really and truly only a choice in that last few minutes when we were back up at the saddle, when there was the other tent. So looking back, I don't think it would have helped us, and it might have. And the other part, I was thinking about conserving energy because we were also, running short on water too. So that was just our choice in the moment. It may have been different. It could be different for other people.
And then we have Michael from Phoenix.
Hi, thank you very much for speaking today, you guys. When I was listening to you talking and you had the Venn diagram there and that shared area in the middle, I kept thinking of a shared higher power and how you both had separate higher powers, and then in the middle a shared higher power. And I almost want to do my own Venn diagram and figuring out if I have a shared higher power and see if I can create that type of synergic energy that I think you might have experienced. If you guys could comment on that. Thanks. Pass.
Yeah, start this time.
Well, I'll tell you that we didn't mention it this time, but quite often I would see a shadow come over Chris's face, and I don't know what he was feeling or thinking at the time, but I would go up to him and say, hey, God's got us, we've got this, we're going to keep going. And as he mentioned, he held me at one point and said the Serenity Prayer, and we did that at different times throughout. I'm going to be honest, I don't know that I had a sense of a shared higher power, but I think when we had a chance to debrief and go back and review, we got some similar messages at the same time. So I think it's rather brilliant that you're bringing that up. I really hadn't considered that, but there's definitely a synergy, a connection that was in evidence. That's what I would say. What do you think, Dave?
For myself, the higher power that I believe in doesn't really have a shape or gender or anything along those lines. I believe that my higher power chooses to appear to each and every one however that person needs. My belief system is the same energy, is the same force that is looking out for both of us. I mean, when we got down back to the car, one of the things that I said was, God's not done with us yet. And whatever it was that he has for me and whatever it is that her higher power has for her, or there's something more to go on, and this is just part of it. So that's just my feeling. But thank you. It's an interesting thought, Michael.
It's great to see you, Michael, too.
And finally, we have Sandy. You can unmute yourself.
I think you said Anna.
Hi,
Sandy.
I actually lived in Las Vegas, and I know you, Lisa, from Las Vegas, and we've been in meetings together. But what I wanted to say was, you are both such an inspiration. Your story has really inspired me. And I am grateful that the two of you worked together and their higher power was with you and you're here with us today. And it's truly a miracle what happened for both of you and how the higher power watched over you. And I just learned so many lessons from your story today. Thank you for taking the time to share that. And we love both of you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Sandy.
Sandy, it's wonderful to see you. I haven't heard your voice in years. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I left Las Vegas before you did.
Yeah, what a gift. What a gift.
Thank you for sharing, everybody. It